This week in the news, Xbox starts the layoffs, Brazil takes on Stop Killing Games, Valve is being contacted for, get this, review manipulation. All that and more on this week's Old Man Rages at the News. Before you get the show on the road, hit the like and subscribe buttons if you enjoy the content. And we're kicking off this week with, a continuation from last week. The Xbox layoffs. George Brassard wasn't kidding when he said it will be the largest single layoff event in gaming history, it seems. The company confirmed that it will lay off 32,000 roles in the fiscal year in July 2027, with 1,600 already getting cut. The Verge also reported that Microsoft was laying off about 4,800 people company-wide. The Xbox numbers are counted in the Microsoft layoffs for anyone who thought it was additional layoffs. Anyways, one of the people who got hit by the layoffs was Matt Hansen. You know, that guy was like, yeah, I'll get in all the black actors so they can replace me and I can live the rest of my life in the forest. Well, good news, Matt. You can start off right now. But anyways, let's get back to the main point. In an email to staff, Ashish Sharma did confirm that Compulsion Games and Double Fine Productions would go independent, and said company would rather retain their IPs. Ninja Theory and Undead Labs would also obtain new owners, with whoever buys them getting enough funding to finish Senua and State of Decay 3. Microsoft did expect Game Pass to have 77 million subscribers as well, but reportedly, they hit 30 million. Delusions at their finest. Now, the funny part here is that during the FTC versus Microsoft trial in 2023, Microsoft expected to hit 100 million subscribers by 2030. Yeah, about that, Microsoft. You have 3.5 years to make that dream happen, or, the insanity happen? Yeah, I very much doubt that. Anyways, there is also something I want to quote from Ash Sharma's post on X. Specifically, we know that great technology gets better when it gets simpler, not bigger. Today, in some parts of the company, work passes through as many as 14 layers of management. Our platform teams are 40% larger than they were at the start of this generation, even as our player base and playtime have declined. That complexity has slowed decisions, blurred accountability, and made it harder to deliver for players. As we reset Xbox, we will simplify. We will reduce management layers to no more than 5, and where possible 3. Now, the reason why I want to quote this is important. And best part is, it's simple. The Bethesda Studio Union claims the layoffs at Bethesda Game Studios were not a cut of 14 layers of management. They claim to have lost dozens of programmers, artists, designers, and testers, with some of those working at Bethesda for decades. Now, personally, I wouldn't be surprised there were 14 layers of management, but, it's still funny to think about what kind of telephone games would happen if that was true. Hey, man, you see this? This swimsuit, it doesn't have a flag on it. Why would it need a flag? I don't know. The guy below me said so. I got passed up to me saying we need to figure out a way to put a flag on it. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Yo, Jay, see this? We need to stake the claims here, man. There's oil in this. Plant the flag. I can already imagine the insanity that ensues. Anyways, back to the story. Just as a reminder that Asha never specified which studio it is, so... looks kinda sus for Bethesda to come out and say something, In a case of nothing of value was lost, Obsidian Entertainment also cancelled the sequel to Avowed, and instead will work on a new Fallout game. Jesus Christ. 2026? Holy shit, man. The Vault Hunter's been starving for weeks and months and years now. Especially with how little this franchise is getting. But anyways, enough with the jokes. The studio design director, Josh Sawyer, will lead this new title in the franchise, but an Xbox spokesperson declined to comment further. And nobody was shocked. Now, the shocking part of all of this is that Bloomberg revealed that Xbox was using Minecraft's success to fund the whole studio. Imagine this. Minecraft being the load-bearing pillar of Xbox. Holy shit. And the best part of all this is, Asha believes that the studio is underutilizing Mojang. Like, how? How are you underutilizing Mojang when the damn thing supports the whole business model? Oh boy. Well, moving forward, Mojang and the developers behind Candy Crush will report directly to her, so, chances are it will be now 2 studios doing the load bearing instead of 1. Mojang and the guys behind Candy Crush. Yeah. Were they again? King, I think? I don't know. Couldn't care less. Well, anyways, many of you still remember that Sony killed the physical discs. But a thing that rolls with that is the petition to stop PlayStation from killing physical discs. This is a change.org petition, so yeah, the website where every petition that was ever made was a good one and will always end up working. Yeah, after which you wake up, your feet are resting on the floor, the windows open, and somehow the bed sheets got shoved up in your underwear. And for those that didn't get it, translation, it's delusion. Now, delusions and sarcasm aside, this petition got hella big, with it reaching close to 300,000 signatures as of the time of recording. But as I mentioned last week, not a lot's gonna happen here because Sony is starting to change the work that's being performed at the places where they produce their first party titles. Now, this isn't to say people aren't doing anything at all. In fact, Sony fans, and well, if you can even call them that, are canceling their PlayStation Plus subscriptions despite getting discounts. That's how much they hate the company at the moment. PlayStation Plus subscriptions are gone. Best part of all this is, on Reddit, someone even showed they've got a 50% off offer for 3 months when they tried to cancel their subscription. Best part is, I'm pretty sure that's the low end of the offers they were throwing around. Oh boy, I can smell desperation from Sony at the moment. However, Dr. Serkan Todo, CEO of Japanese game industry consultation firm Kantan Games, believes Sony wouldn't change course. To quote what he told IGN, "I sympathize with physical media fans, but Sony will not reverse this decision. They of course knew what the online reaction would look like, and they now wait for this storm to pass. Sony has over 120 million active PlayStation users, around 50 million people subscribed to PlayStation Plus. As a thought experiment, let's say 500,000 cancel in protest. That would be just 1% of that business gone. Of course, not enough to start rethinking. Digital is just too lucrative." IGN also added extra content mentioning how Sony keeps 65% of the profits from physical copies, 30% goes to the retailers, and 5% is for the manufacturing itself. They get far less for third-party games, with IGN speculating it's around 15%. So with that context, it makes more sense to get more money from digital stores, in a greedy, twisted way, since if they make their own games and put them on their own store, they keep 100% of the revenue and get, 30% cut from third-party games. Well, honestly, I think that's the entire reason why Sony's going digital right now. Not because they can't soak up the losses. Hell, if 1% of their business is gone, they're not even gonna feel it. Now, one last thing I want to cover in this story is the Polygon article, because, well, it went viral. Polygon, in their wisdom, or lack thereof, put out an article with the title, "I Want More PlayStation Discs." Well, right out of the gate, it's a rage bait article. And, well, it worked quite well, apparently. Now, why can I tell it's a rage bait article? Well, because literally within the first line, it pointed out the journalist supports physical media, even buying physical Switch games. Well, whether you want to believe him or not, the problem with discs, according to the article, were, and I quote, "But if the game needed to read data constantly from the disc, they were slow, noisy, and unreliable. Discs are easy to scratch or get dirty, a nuisance for music or movies that skip, but a disaster for games which could become unplayable." He then further mentions that he had to turn the original PlayStation upside down to get it to play anything. Yeah, the fossil age was quite different than the modern age now, wasn't it, kids? To quote the final part of the article, and this is in reference to what games are, they are insistent, interactive, open-ended works that can fully inhabit a single second or 100 hours. They are a read-write medium, an exchange between the players and the artists. That's why they belong on chips written in silicon. Cartridges were always the best medium for games and always will be. Now, fair enough, I agree with the guy. Cartridges were the best medium since, you can properly record data on those things. They didn't need to spin. Almost as if, we can do the same thing with USB drives and ship games on those, but I'm just, rambling. Now, anyways, one thing that's worth mentioning is that Polygon partnered up with Valnet. Instead of getting paid upfront for every article Polygon journalists write, they instead get $8 for every 1,000 page views. So yeah, this is 100% rage bait to get you to read the article. Frankly, if you wrote something along the lines of physical media should have been created differently, it wouldn't have gotten that much engagement. And let's be real here, this makes it real easy for Sony to remove games from your account since, you won't have a disc. Hell, Louis Rossman hit the nail on the head with this video on the matter. This whole situation is about ownership rights of the game you bought, or, as the terms and services say, the license for a game you bought. In other news, Valve could face a review manipulation problem. Oh boy, I get to talk about Gaijin Entertainment. Ah crap, it's not about its community and their tendency to leak classified documents by accident. Apparently it's about a former head of Gaijin's community management team, and for more than 2 months he's been trying to contact Valve with evidence of possible review manipulation and Steamwork access control failures. Big words, I know, but stick with me for a moment here, will ya? Evgeny worked for 13 years as a community manager for War Thunder and enlisted. Pointed out 3 problems on r/Steam. One of them is former employees retaining access to Steamworks even if they are no longer working for the company. He alleged that he has screenshots, recordings, and witness statements of former employees having admin access to Steamworks even after leaving Gaijin. This feels like it's more on Gaijin's side, to be honest, than Valve, so I don't know why Valve would try to verify anything here, unless Valve decided to not remove their admin access after it was revoked by the company, which I don't know, it gets a bit messy, but let's see what's going on here. On the second point at least, where he alleges that there's a coordinated award for positive reviews, again saying there are logs and testimony from former employees following instructions of management to give Steam awards to positive reviews of gaijin games. Alright. So, again, this screams internal gaijin bad practices. Now, this also ties to the third point he made. Employees creating reviews themselves. Oh boy. Now, ain't that scummy practices? Evgeny contacted Valve on the 8th of April 2026 and sent a follow-up email 5 days later, but nothing came of it. Hell, looking at the time of writing, there wasn't anything said about it publicly, so yeah, I don't know. Now, if this thing sounds familiar to you, then don't worry, you're not gonna be surprised. The very same story was told 3 months ago by Xenia on the r/War Thunder subreddit. Now, it's worth noting that it's by the same account, so I don't know if the OG person gave it to the new guy or something along the lines, so yeah, I'll take this with a grain of salt. But another thing that's involving Valve, and this time it's far more hilarious, is a developer telling Valve to fix their exploitable 2-hour refund policy, as over 5,500 players refunded his short game and bragged about it in reviews. The game in question is called Paddle Paddle Paddle, and it's basically a co-op version of Getting Over It. Yes, it's a rage game, so nothing of value there. The developer of the game took to X and posted this. Yeesh. Now, you know what? I'm just gonna quote the guy. "This should not be possible at Steam. Would be cool if you could finally do something about your refund policy. Got dozens of reviews like that and 21% refund rate, even though the reviews are 90% positive. That's over 5,500 refunds, by the way." All I gotta say is skill issue. Well, on the bright side, he is aware that this isn't a majority, just a small minority of good gamers and speedrunners that completed it in less than 2 hours. So there's that. But I can hear you already in the background. Put the pitchforks down. I looked through the reviews and a few of them talked about how the game either has minimal effort put into it or are straight up calling it unfinished. There is also the other side that left negative reviews due to the devs' entitlement, because Steam's refund policy is hella fucking good. It basically allows you to see if something is shovelware and refund it, which, you know, is great for the consumers. Now, the dev did later clarify that he isn't against the refund policy and was more against the people bragging about finishing it and getting a refund. But as you can see, it barely got any traction. Now, what got traction on Valve's end is that Palworld's 1.0 patch, well, dropped, and the patch notes were so massive, Steam wouldn't accept them. According to Bucky, the patch notes were initially rejected by Steam for being over the 32,000 character limit. Well, good news. The document was fixed without compromises, and our players sure feel like they're playing a new game. In hindsight, the amount of changes to the early game alone at the moment, I think, can feel like a whole different game, so, you know, there's that. And now for something I did not see coming. A Stop Killing Games inspired bill could potentially happen in Brazil. Jandira Ficali, a Brazilian congresswoman, filed Bill PL 3612-2026, which she described as being directly inspired by Stop Killing Games. She also added that she will bring it alongside Marco Fillo to begin shaping the legal frameworks for games. The proposal deals with consumer protection for buyers of electronic games, preserve Brazilian digital culture, and obligation for suppliers when essential services needed for the digital games are discontinued. Well, calling me surprised, not something I was expecting to see from Brazil. Let's see how this thing shapes up. And now for rapid fire news. Saber Interactive has some bragging rights. They got so many offers they had to turn down more projects than they could even possibly accept. This is because Warhammer 40k Space Marines 2 was so successful, and because it was also a licensed project. Their reputation basically skyrocketed, resulting in many new possibilities for the studio. The CCO, Tim Willett, said to the game business that every major license holder wants them to make a game. Holy shit. We might actually get good games from Saber Interactive from more licenses than Warhammer. Holy crap. On the other side of the spectrum, Game Rant did a stupid thing and smeared Pal World by editing in a six-finger to imply AI and change the Pal Sphere to a Pokeball. Now, obviously you can't see the original post since it got deleted, but good news, the internet doesn't forget, and r/Kotaku in action archived it. And yeah, it's quite bad. Hell, I wonder how much Nintendo paid for the attempted smear piece, or is Game Rant doing it for the love of the game? Anyways, Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resync got its files leaked 2 days before release. Alright, what's going on here? First was Subnautica, then was Forza 6, now Black Flag. What's going on here? Games are released before their release date? Are they going out in such a finished state that it's time to release them prematurely? Anyways, as things would happen, it naturally got cracked with the de novo bypass, allowing pirates yet again to play it before people who bought the game. When it was released as well, it had more negative reviews, but the positive reviews came trickling back in. It still requires you to have Uplay because this is Ubisoft, and the DLC costs more than the deluxe edition of the game. Make of that what you will. Now, in somewhat of a piggyback version of the restructuring over at Xbox, we got another set of layoffs that happened this week with GameSpot for the 5th time. What? Are they still working, for crying out loud? It's 5 sets of layoffs so far. Was the blow that big? This round of layoffs affected 4 staffers and 5 freelancers. One of the more important layoffs was with Chris Grant, who joined Fandom, GameSpot's parent company, in September 2025 to oversee GameSpot. Fandom didn't reply to Aftermath's request for comment, so nobody really knows why. But anyways, a German's game preservation project collapsed after a fund of 1.5 million euros dried up. The ICS was the largest publicly accessible video games archive, and after the public funding expired at the end of April and the government declined to renew it, well, it collapsed. On the 3rd of July, the project's shareholders unanimously agreed to shut it down, leaving over 60,000 catalog titles in the dust. Another bad day for game preservation, man. Oh boy. And now for news from the land down under, where even the koalas will stop you from playing GTA 6. Why? Because players will need to provide a form of identification to play the game in Australia. So, let me get straight. The wildlife's trying to kill you. The entire continent says, fuck you, I'm gonna kill you. And the government's like, you know what? Before you die, you need to confirm that you're an adult to play a game that you bought. You know what's the kicker? This doesn't only cover GTA 6. It covers any other adult-related games because, well, you know, why don't you willingly give away your personal information so it can be stored somewhere without your knowledge, only for you to find out when the company holding the data discloses it was hacked and everyone's personal information was stolen? You will be like, but they said they didn't hold the data. Yeah, about that. Almost as if them holding your data and selling it isn't the main reason behind identification to play here. But anyways, that's all for this week's Old Man Rage Said the News. You know the drill. Hit the like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next week.